Conventional agriculture, monocultures, big plots of land using chemicals, fertilizers, this is not going to restore our topsoil. It's very, very dangerous. Meat is not destroying our health. Processed foods are destroying our health. And if we continue down this trajectory where there's this anti-animal narrative and all animal production is dangerous and destructive, we are going to find ourselves in not only a weakened state of health, but within an environment that we can't rehabilitate in the way that we could if we just all accepted the idea that, yeah, we can do better with agriculture. There's people already doing it. And that's the direction that we need to go. We need to empower our local communities and our local farmers and ranchers and keep ourselves close to the food source. The answer is not all of these factories producing fake meats and other industrial produced foodstuffs. That is not going to get us where we want to go. And in fact, it's going to bring us the opposite of where we want to go.
In today's busy world, how can we find the inspiration, knowledge, and energy to live a healthy and empowered life? If we balance and harmonize our mind, exercise our body, live according to the laws of nature, and connect to spirit, can we find a way to heal, become our authentic self, and live our purpose with love? I am your hostess, Amy Fournier, and welcome back to Awakening Aphrodite.
Hey, welcome back to Awakening Aphrodite with Amy Fournier. The show is about helping you to be healthy and fit in mind, body, and spirit, as well as harmonize your masculine and feminine energy, tap into your intuition, your true source of power, and awaken your authentic self. All right, I got some fun facts for you, or maybe not so fun. Have a listen to this. In a 2022 analysis of USDA data, they found that red meat consumption declined by 44% and fluid and cream dairy declined by 48%. So basically that's like by a half, right? Animal fats like lard consumption declined by, ready for this? 78%. Okay? That's 22% away from 100% gone. Crazy. Butter declined by 68%. And I shudder to think with what it was replaced by. God forbid, like margarine and stuff that's not even real food. 68% decline in butter, okay? Margarine consumption increased. Okay, here you go, answering my own question. It increased by, are you ready for this? 192%. Shortening, another manufactured food, increased by how much? 91%. Are you seeing a trend here? Okay, and here's the big kahuna. You ready for this one? And this one might shock you, but this is very, very important. Cooking oils, so like vegetable oils that we've been told are so good for us, increased by, get ready for it, 321%. 321% increase in cooking oils. So canola, soy, corn, safflower, these oils are now thought to be worse for our biology and our health and our mood and our energy and our weight, not to mention our skin, hair, and nails, and our looks, etc., worse for us than sugar. Okay, so you can find out more about that. There's a blog post I did. It's called The Hateful Eight, which is the top 8 offenders in vegetable oils was screwing up our biology by Dr. Kate, which is fantastic. The food that you put in your body is more than just calories, folks. That's a huge takeaway of my show. If you subscribe, you hear me say that a lot because we're not told that. We think of food as calories, right? Calories in, calories out. If I eat less, then I burn off, I will lose weight. Wrong. Okay, it doesn't work that way. First of all, there's light and sound and mindset and sleep and all these other biologically important factors. But food is a lot more than calories. It is information. It's instructions. It's like barcodes to your physiology. What you eat tells your cells what to do or what to not do. That's why it's so powerful. And that's why it's so exciting, because it's good news. Meaning if you choose wisely and you do your homework and you listen to your body and you pay attention and you put together pieces like a scientist, like, when I eat that, I feel that. I can't sleep. I'm hyper. I'm I'm moody, I'm depressed, I'm whatever, I gain weight. You just got to start paying attention and your body will talk to you and then you'll figure it out and then you'll find out for yourself how amazing you can feel when you get it right. Today's guest is Autumn Smith. Autumn Smith has done just that. She's one of my heroes because she is a strong, empowered, got it together female. And she's a mom. She's the founder of an amazing food company and growing. She keeps just finding new cool stuff. She has been a co-founder in Paleovalley. You might have heard of Paleovalley. You've probably seen it on my social media, Fit Amy TV, because I'm always posting about, eating their yummy turkey sticks or I love their apple cider vinegar supplement. They've got a great bone broth. They've got a fantastic new electrolyte drink. Turmeric Complex is great for inflammation. Just so many great products. It's a great company. It's regenerative. It's got integrity. It treats animals, people, the earth with respect, and it's healthy and it tastes good. Okay, those are just check. Certainly, that is the criteria of a company that I would share with you. So I asked Autumn to be on the show today because she's just fascinating. She's like a walking nutritional encyclopedia of information. Good proof that when you get your nutrition right, your brain works right. She's got amazing recall. And her company, Paleovalley, is all about helping people reclaim their vitality. They have products that prioritize nutrient density in an industry that prioritizes pretty much everything else. They believe that every dietary choice and every added ingredient is a powerful opportunity to love and care for yourself. How about that for a company mission? You don't see that on a box of Triscuits. That's for sure. Okay, so she lives right now in San Diego, California with her husband. And they're just walking this beautiful path together with their son and their beautiful company. And today's episode, you're just going to get a great education because we talk about the regenerative agriculture industry and climate change and what's going on with pasture raised and free range this and genetically modified that. And we help to really clarify some terms for you because how can we make the right choices when we get confused and when terms are not what you think they are? When you're buying something because you're assuming it means one thing, but nope, it actually doesn't mean that thing. So hopefully this show will help educate you to make the choices for you so you can buy what you think you're buying and therefore get what you think you're getting. Okay? Some of the other things we talk about today are how animals are actually part of the ecosystem, a vital part of agriculture, not to mention a healthy diet. We talk about what happened to red meat, and Autumn's docuseries called Rethink Meat actually was started to help dispel the myth that meat is dangerous. She's got a ton of research there, so you can make your own decision if it's right for you. And we talk about sustainability, how important the soil is. We talk a lot about vegetarianism. So if you're still here with me now, you're probably at least open to the fact of eating meat. And if you know a vegetarian, send them this episode so they can make an informed choice, okay? If you feel amazing, you have no health issues, you're perfect weight, nice skin, hair, nails, able to sleep well, you have good energy, you're strong, your brain works right, then you're probably getting most of your diet right, okay? But if you're on any kind of medications, have an autoimmune disorder, skin problems, mood problems, weight problems, you probably really need to look at your diet. That's where I would recommend you start if I was working with you one-on-one. So we talk about vegetarianism and this anti-meat narrative. We talk about saturated fats, seed and vegetable oils, and how Paleovalley and her company is different and how they're transforming the food industry and the meat industry. And we talk about our favorite Paleovalley products. I had to put Autumn right on the spot and ask her what her favorite things are. And I talk about what my favorite products are. So I hope you enjoy this episode. And if you want to try any of the products, thank you, Paleovalley, for extending to my audience a coupon code where you can save some money. All you have to do at checkout is enter my name, Amy Fournier 10 at checkout, all caps. That's AMY, F as in Fox, OURNIER 10 at checkout. If you forget, don't worry. It's on my website under the recommended products. Just scroll down for Paleovalley, click it on, boom, click the link, take you right there, and shop away. Watch yourself get healthy, and you're going to love it. I know you will, because I like food that tastes good. I won't eat anything that doesn't taste good. It's not worth it to me. All right, let's now join Autumn Smith. Welcome to the show, Autumn.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you just for having me. I can see why people are listening to what you have to say. You have this beautiful energy and exuberance. I'm really excited to be a part of this show.
Oh, thanks, Autumn. Well, right back at you. I think healthy glows, when your body kind of has an energy that's emitted and people can feel it because things are working kind of right. You know what I mean? And I'm sure you know all about that.
Yeah, I'm trying, but you definitely have some things figured out. So,
oh, thanks. Well, like you, it's been a journey through struggle, that got me to where I am. Like so many people in the holistic health space, as that whole wounded healer thing of having our own personal trials and tribulations and then finding our way, and forging that path. But I just have to give a shout out to our mutual friend, Paul Check, for bringing us together because he's a huge fan of you and he turned me on to your amazing company and products, which we are going to talk about because I use them pretty much every day. So thank you, Paul, for bringing us together. He speaks so highly of you and how intelligent you are and how you founded this company through your own trials and tribulations of wanting to find healthy things to give your children because you're a mom. So why don't you just tell us the little synopsis of Autumn Smith and you now run this amazing food company amongst other things. It's just incredible that, you did this. So share with us what happened there.
Well, thanks. First, I want to say I run part of it. We have a really brilliant team behind me. So it's only possible with them. And also Paul, everything I learned started with Paul. I remember the day I was driving in my car and my husband as a gift gave me his little CD, You Are What You Eat. And that is what turned me onto this path. So thank you, Paul. And my life, I had a lot of trials and tribulations. I was a very troubled teen. I had digestive issues since about the age of 10. No doctor that I, ran into knew what to do with me. And so we didn't do anything. And they eventually snowballed into mental health issues, anxiety, depression, eating disorder. And eventually when I couldn't manage the physical and emotional pain, I looked to substances. So anything I could get my hands on in high school, I tried. And I got so out of control that my parents kicked me out of my house before I graduated. And luckily, I still was really committed to education and dancing. I made it through college and moved to Los Angeles, became a dancer. But when my husband met me at the age of 24, I was, I had everything on the outside looked okay, right? I had a good job. I was working as a celebrity fitness trainer. But when he really got to know me, he said, you are suffering in silence and I see you. And this is unsustainable. We need to expect better. We need to try to do better. We need to heal what's going on. We were in Los Angeles at the time and he just begged me to see one last doctor because I'd kind of lost hope in the traditional system. I just thought something was broken within me. And no doctor in LA, the ones we saw, couldn't help either. So he got online, as any new husband would do, and figured out that people were seeing some luck resolving digestive issues with diet. And I thought, well, this is silly, but I'll try it. I'll entertain his theory. And it was in 30 days after just literally changing my diet, it was so transformative that I became a new person. And I was, like I said, working as a celebrity fitness trainer. But I was also crashing at night hard. Skin was breaking out. Stomach was bloated. I was having anxiety and panic attacks. And so I felt like a fraud. And I thought, this is different. This is different than being fit. this feels like being well and being whole. And I want to figure out how that happened. So I quit my job and I went back to school. I got a master's. I'm almost done with my doctorate, my dissertation finally. And so I just became obsessed with all things wellness. We founded our companies because once I had this new level of health, I wanted to give it away to the people I knew and to my friends and family. And a lot of them were leading busy lives. And I thought, well, and I went on a world tour actually. And the last assignment when I worked for Tracy Anderson was a world tour. And I could not find the clean ingredient food that I needed in order to maintain that level of health. And so when we got back to America, I decided, we're going to found a company and we're going to focus on the products and the supplements and the things that have helped me heal so that they can help others too. And once our son was born, Maverick, we had all these existing relationships with farmers and ranchers who were really teaching us about the nuance and the difference that agriculture can make for food. So we founded a second company based on regenerative agriculture because we didn't want to wake up and find a day where our son couldn't access high quality food and where agriculture, the way that we were practicing it currently, had destroyed our topsoil. And so we wanted to be a part of that change too. But so we filed, Paleovalley and wild pastures, and more recently got into the restaurant business, which we can talk about. But the main goal here is to use, like you're saying, turn my pain into purpose and just help other people avoid what I had to go through and just feel their best.
Pain into purpose. It's such a powerful thing to say. If we can alchematize that, that's kind of the whole goal, right? To make it worth something, make it useful rather than just painful. And wow, yet another person that was fit but not healthy. I mean, if I had a dime for every time I've seen or heard that, it's just so true. The packaging is nothing, of really what's going on inside is key. So wow, we have that in common, I guess. Okay, so I really would love for you to really give us a practical education, Autumn, because you have done extensive research, not only in founding your amazing company with healthy, delicious foods, convenient foods, but also on the state of our food system right now with your Docuseries, Rethink Meat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Rethink Meat. And give us kind of the lowdown on, I've done other shows with biodynamic farmers and agriculturalists like, are you familiar with Jared Picard? He had he's connected with him through Paul. Everybody, if they're interested in that, we go all into truth on organics, natural foods, regenerative farming, biodynamic farming. That's episode 98. And then also, Jim Gale, I'm sure you know him, the permaculture agriculturalist. He's really a big guy, and he actually hooked up with Paul at a conference too. He's he's just like killing it right now. He's a permacultural agriculturist. So all this stuff is really popular in our holistic circles, because people are starting to finally get back to keep breaking it down, and getting back to, all right, it's not only what you eat and also how you think in your environment in the holistic sense, but it's also what you ate and how they lived or it lived. How did that plant live? Did it live in the sun? Did it live with clean water? Did it live, with nutritious soil? And was the animal stressed? Was it in a cage? Was it, scared to death hearing other animals being killed? Don't think that doesn't affect its hormonal system. And so we're starting to now realize, okay, we got to take it way back, everybody. It's not just about, reps and sets and eating salads. It's like, you got to really consider where your food came from, the conditions that the food, whether it be plant or animal, was grown in and brought to your table, all that stuff. So to give us the lowdown on, as a mom and a business owner and a food producer, what do we really need to know about regenerative agriculture? Like, what's the takeaway for people? Like, what does that even mean? Because people kind of think, okay, organic, but even that's been bastardized. That's not even what you think it is anymore. So give us the lowdown.
Oh my goodness, what an amazing step and such a can of worms we have to open.
Yeah.
But kind of the overview that I think a lot of us are missing is this quote from Provenza that I love. It said, we have to learn that we're members of nature's community. What we do to them, we do to ourselves. And only by nurturing them can we nurture ourselves, right? So we have this idea that with conventional agriculture that we can destroy the environment and that somehow we are not going to be impacted by that because we're still producing a lot of food. But essentially, there's three types of agriculture happening today. There's conventional agriculture, which began with good intentions, right? We're prioritizing yield, we're efficient, but we're also using chemicals, fertilizers, pesticides, tillage that degrades our environment. And in fact, for the last 10,000 years, we've been living in an extractive relationship with our planet, taking out more than we're putting back in. And like a soil, like a bank account, our soil is depleted, right? We've lost between 50 to 70% of the soil carbon stock. We're losing soil at a rate 10 to 40 times faster than we're able to produce it, something like 30 million acres every year. So the second type of agriculture is organic, right? Organic is a wonderful type of agriculture that, doesn't use all of the same inputs, but still we can consider it more of a sustainable type. Not all agriculture organic, because some of it will be regenerative, which I'm going to talk about in a second, but still some organic doesn't necessarily make things better because they're still using tillage. So that's a sustainable. But the problem is, as I've set up before, we are at a state where we can't sustain what we have right now, right? If we lose soil health, we lose food. 99% of our calories comes from the soil, right? Our antimicrobials, our antibiotics, a lot of them come from the soil. Energy reduction comes from the soil. Biodiversity in our environment, it starts in the soil. And so what we have to do is go beyond sustainable, and we have to think regenerative. We have to accept that what we've done to the planet is not going to give us the kind of health in future generations, the type of health that they really deserve. And so we have to do regenerative agriculture, which means go and return it to a higher or more worthy state. And so that is regenerative agriculture. At its heart is taking something and making it better, using ecological outcomes to verify that the practices that you are using are in fact bringing back the carbon levels in the soil and the organic matter in the soil, which is going to lead to healthier plants, healthier animals, and eventually healthier humans. So there's a lot of change happening in agriculture right now for the better, right? A lot of our farmers are trapped in this conventional system where it's a real risk to switch over, because they're not going to be subsidized. They're kind of going against the grain, and they might be mimicked and things like that. But a lot of regenerative agriculturists and ranchers, and what do I call them, as scientists, because that's what they are experimenting with this new type of agriculture. And so I think what's important to understand is that as consumers, we drive the direction of our agriculture, right? And these regenerative ranchers and farmers who are doing things a little bit differently, we can vote for them every time that we choose what to eat, which is, 2-3 times a day. And we have to, because without them, they don't have a safety net. They don't have a promise that what they're producing will be valued. And so, yeah. And then the other thing is, like we said, we're going back to the idea from Provenza that agriculture is the heart of health. We're not going to have it without it, right? And we didn't know what we were doing when we were using these chemicals and fertilizers that kind of degraded the soil biology. In fact, a lot of these farmers and ranchers I talk to, they say, oh, I studied soil science, but we studied NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus. We studied the chemistry. We didn't know about the biology. And so prioritizing the biology is that is what's going to create the explosion below our surface in our soil that's going to create the explosion of healthy life and ecosystems above it.
So yes, reductionism, right? Versus the holistic concept is what you're talking about. Because like in school, like you said, we isolate nutrients or chemicals or whatever they may be. I mean, even now with supplements and stuff, like, we isolate, oh, vitamin D is good for your immune system. It's good for your bones. Okay, here's vitamin D. But we don't realize that every source that nature naturally puts vitamin D in has all these other cofactors and chemicals, for lack of a better term, synergistic ingredients that enable your body to use it and have other beneficial qualities. So nature doesn't operate in a vacuum. It's everything is affecting everything. And not to mention, there's so much stuff that we don't understand or even know about. I mean, it's silly to think you can just like pluck out like one element of something and then you're going to have the best results.
Oh, it's just like a ripple effect, right? And what I've been really looking into recently that Polachek very much inspired was just this, when you take supplements and they're isolated. I was just reading a study from 2009 where you take B vitamins, B9 in particular, folic acid, and B12, and it actually increased the risk of not only cancer by 21%, but also the risk of all mortality by 38% in this trial of the Norwegian populations. We also know calcium in isolated supplement versions can increase risk of cardiovascular disease. I just read a trial in men where it did this. So exactly your point. Whereas we see with whole foods, it reduces the risk of disease. And yet when you pluck something out and you just try and use it in the body the same way, it isn't performing the same way because you're taking it out of that holistic context.
And everyone has to remember that all of these nutrients, or even hormones for that matter, are all working in partnership. They usually have an antagonistic component, kind of like how your bicep and tricep work in opposition. You flex your bicep, your tricep will stretch, vice versa. Calcium, magnesium, to your example. Magnesium is essential for the heart to function properly. People take calcium supplements hoping to help reduce their risk of osteoporosis, and then their magnesium goes down because they work in opposition. Magnesium goes down, you have risk for heart disease, constipation, anxiety, sleep problems, muscle cramps. I mean, you name it. So to your point, when we isolate things, we have to be aware that we're going to be indirectly affecting something else and possibly screwing up that delicate balance, unbeknownst to us. So we can avoid that when we go to the whole food things, which is part of what I love, even with your supplements, because you have supplements in your company, like for your turmeric or your apple cider vinegar, two of my favorites, by the way, from your company. Okay, they're supplements, but you know enough to know that you put in a bunch of cofactors that are supporting. And actually, why don't you educate us on that? So rather than someone going to CVS and getting a supplement, like a turmeric, that's just literally that with a bunch of other fillers to make it a pill. You researched enough to know that this is how nature usually puts it together so your body can utilize it better. Please tell us about that.
Yes. And in fact, I just interviewed someone named Dr. Agarwal, and he studied turmeric and curcumin specifically for decades at MD Anderson Cancer Clinic. And so what he found is that I love to share is most people will say, okay, the active ingredient in turmeric is curcumin.
Yeah.
But that is not, it is one active ingredient, but it is not the only one. And he's done trials to show that other ingredients in turmeric are as powerful. And when you take the curcumin out of turmeric, that still performs. It still has that anti-inflammatory function that we know so well. And so there's dozens of compounds in these, like in a spice like turmeric. And so when you only take a curcumin, which is pretty much what you're going to find at most like drugstores or most supplements, you're taking, again, that synthetic supplement out of context, right? And without all of the other amazing cofactors. And so first we started with, of course, organic whole food turmeric, because I know nature knows better than I know, right? There's things that we don't even understand yet. Nutritional science is very young. We've learned a lot, but it's very young. Then we learned about other things that enhance the absorption or our body's ability to use that turmeric, which is, fat, coconut milk powder, and black pepper. And so then we also added other spices, rosemary and clove and ginger, because there was a trial showing that those three were the most DNA protective spices. And so we thought most people probably undervalued and underutilized these spices. And so we wanted to create a blend that would capitalize on that synergy and all of the whole food components that were already in it. And of course, make it organic and not have any of the crazy fillers. But yeah, it's a lot different than the other supplements you're going to find, because they're whole foods. There is not one of our supplements where we use isolated or synthetic ingredients.
Yes. They're actually real foods. Yeah. Like you could break open the capsule and pour it on your food or your salad and you wouldn't really know. Like,
no.
You don't taste that like pilly taste, like
no, that's what I did for my, yeah. Oh, sorry to interrupt. That's what I did for my son and my dog. We opened supplements and put them right in there for our dog. And so
I do that with your organ supplement. Because a
Yes.
lot of people don't like the taste of organ meats, but we know they are the most nutrient dense thing on the planet, more than vegetables or anything else. And I actually break open your organ capsules and I put it right in my dog's food. They love it. They gobble it right up.
I love
So
that. That's exactly what we do.
awesome. Oh man, here I thought I was the smarty.
No, you
I
are.
should have known better. Okay. All right. So let's now talk about, let me think. Okay, the difference between animals that are plant raised, animals and plants that are raised the way nature intended and conventional. Can you just give us a little more details? Because, a lot of people, it's like, I should get a gold star just for eating a salad. It's like, okay, that's true. Like that's good. But what would you say to all the people going, at least I ate a salad? Why is something organic or, residue free or free range, all that? Why is that worth the extra time and expense?
Yes. Okay. So I'm going to focus this specifically on animal products because that's what I've
Please.
been studying for this docuseries.
Yep.
But first, we have to acknowledge, okay, lots of problems with our conventional agriculture when it comes to the way we raise animals. 95% of the products you're going to see in a grocery store are raised in factory farms, right? So my main qualms, first, inhumane treatment of animals. Okay. So we all know that, but also really interesting research from Fred Provenza and Dr. Van Vliet to show that when they're raised in those stressful conditions, the quality of their product changes, right? They have higher levels of glucose and mitochondrial dysfunction and higher production of age-related, like AGEs, they call them, advanced glycation end products. So, and also these animals are not allowed to self-select their diet. So we, just like animals, use food as medicine, but when they're given these mixed rations, these total mixed rations, they're not allowed to do that. And so these animals might not be as healthy as they otherwise could be. And in fact, a lot of them do end up getting sick. So that's one. Then we have additives, right? So ractopamine is something banned in over 100 countries, linked to poisonings in pork, and then also heart palpitations in humans and lameness in the animals themselves. Now we use it because it allows them to gain weight more quickly, but there are real concerns enough for over 100 countries to choose to not use this. But in America, this is still used. We also have antibiotics, right? And
Yes.
antibiotic resistance is a very serious threat, right? 700,000 lives are lost every year. And if we keep going at the rate we are, it's going to kill more people than cancer is estimated by 2050. And so there was an attempt at regulation in 2016, but they now say rather than using it to kind of prevent illness or to gain weight, they're saying, oh, well, we're using it to prevent illness. And so there's no regulation there. Anyway, a lot of people are using antibiotics. A lot of people are still using hormones like Zeranol. And there's, over 30 hormones being used historically, and only 6 of them remain. So I think it just makes sense to use the precautionary principle because I think it's probably only a matter of time before they're phased out as well.
So, excuse me, just to clarify, you're saying that animals are given hormones.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I just want to make sure the audience understands this point. So it's like, remember, you're eating what you ate and how it was treated. So we're wondering why children are having early puberty and we're having all these emotional issues. That's your hormones. We can't sleep or we're gaining weight or cancers. You've got to consider these animals are being treated and given things that aren't natural. And then you're eating them and that's becoming your body. So if that's not reason right there to spring the time, money, and expense on as healthy as you could possibly make it with not conventional. So let's clarify. I was just finished that point, not conventional foods. As you continue, Autumn, could you please clarify for us for what we're talking about? Like what is conventional for someone listening going, what are they even talking about?
Yeah.
So what can you just define what does conventional mean to people?
Yeah, conventional would be something like a factory farm setting. That is where a lot of our meat is produced. So there's hundreds, thousands of animals in small cramped spaces, right?
Yeah.
And they're often fed total mixed rations. In when it comes to cows, for example, a lot of corn and soy, they're kind of like pre-formulated to improve weight as efficiently as possible. And then in pork and chicken, it's a lot of grains. A lot of grains are being grown elsewhere and flown in to give these animals. And they're in these huge warehouses given antibiotics a lot of time that helps them grow faster, also helps prevent illness in these unsanitary conditions. A lot of them are, like we're saying, given hormones that are going to, again, help them gain weight more quickly. And to your point, there was a paper a few years ago that showed that linked kind of zeranol, which is one of the hormones used in estrogen, to precocious puberty in people in Puerto Rico who are consuming this meat. It isn't like a cause and effect necessarily, but I think it's safe to assume there may be a relationship there. So conventional animals are not raised like you'd think they would be on like old McDonald's farm, right? Where there's diversification, there's pigs, there's chickens, there's sheep, there's cows. We've gotten really centralized and consolidated and industrialized with our production of animal products. And what happens is there's huge, not only detriments to human health because of the additives that we're using, but also to environmental health, because animals are no longer being used to improve and restore ecosystems, which they absolutely can be, but their manure is this huge waste product. And given the amounts, they can sometimes produce more manure than in the US cities, in some of these really large factory farms. And then what happens is the manure goes into the air, it creates air pollution. The people living around CAFOs and factory farms are suffering higher rates of asthma and respiratory conditions. And then also it gets into our lakes, into our streams, and it increases the amount of nitrogen in those areas. And that's led to over 400 dead zones throughout the world, one of which is in the Gulf of Mexico, where aquatic life can't live anymore because it creates a very low oxygen environment because of these algal blooms. And so fish are dying. And there's also something called Cancer Alley between New Orleans and Baton Rouge. It's this kind of like area where there's like large amounts of industry, but also where a lot of these chemicals are kind of like draining, and there's high rates of cancer, more than higher than in any other place. So that is conventional production. And it began with good intentions because there was a population boom. We didn't know how we were going to provide food for all of these people. But what we've realized is we've gone too far away from nature, and we have to bring nature back into the equation, because the way we're doing agriculture is not sustainable anymore, and it's going to destroy our ecosystems and potentially our health. So the last thing that I want to say about conventional that I think is really troubling, as we've learned in the pandemic, is the social aspect, right? Our rural communities, I grew up in one, they're disappearing because we have these huge consolidated like meat processing industries and big concentrated companies, transnational companies that are producing and controlling a lot of our meat. And it's taking the community element out of it. And so before, when we had these farms, the people who were invested in the land and lived in the community and cared about the conditions were making the decisions that directly affected it. And now we have CEOs in far off countries exporting their pollution to our country, right? And stealing our jobs and our livelihoods. And so, yes, that is what is happening in conventional agriculture. Fortunately, and also there's research that I'm involved in, and I'm doing my dissertation on it to look at the differences in the nutritional profiles, which is really fascinating. So we know conventional beef is going to have, similar protein, but it's going to have higher amounts of cholesterol and saturated fat in a lot of cases. It's going to have a different saturated fatty acid profile. So the saturated fats, for example, that raise cholesterol more are higher in grain-fed and conventional beef. It's going to have lower levels of antioxidants and lower levels of phytonutrients. We used to think that phytonutrients, these plant compounds, were only in plants, but we're finding when you raise cattle on diversified pastures, and we can talk about more what that looks like, but you're going to actually have plant compounds in significant amounts that have antibacterial, anti-inflammatory, anti-diabetic, antidepressive, all of these different benefits. And so yes, conventional agriculture is where we're getting a lot of our meat today, and it's very, very, very different than a regenerative system. In fact, the regenerative systems have been shown to be even more beneficial in certain trials than even plant proteins. So what I think is dangerous is this narrative that all animal agriculture is destructive or unhealthy, which is what our children are hearing these days, because beef is not beef is not beef. Grass-fed is not grass-fed is not grass-fed. There's so many nuances, and that's kind of my goal with the Docuseries, to help inform people about those.
Okay. So much what you said there. Thank you. Amazing. I definitely need to circle back and have you define for us, because you have this on your website. I'm going to direct everybody to on clarifying how pasture-raised, cage-free free roaming or whatever the heck it's called, how these are all terms that are nuanced that manufacturers intentionally manipulate the way. It's kind of like what everyone has been calling the quote COVID vaccine. It's not a vaccine. It's a gene modulation shot. So what you think of as a vaccine, this is not doing what a vaccine normally does. So they changed the definition, but they purposefully use that word because people can identify with what a vaccine is. Not to get off on that tangent, but this is very similar. They're using words and phrases that people, quick, busy, distracted, whatever, buying food, you got to get home and do everything you got to do. And they see a word and they think, oh, that means that. And it doesn't. So I want to circle back on that, put a pen in it. But I do want to also clarify for people what we're talking about with conventional is pretty much everything that Autumn just said is if the food doesn't literally say on it, organic, regenerative farming, free range, finished, whatever, grass-fed, that means it is conventional. So if companies have gone to the time, money, and expense to go the extra mile and raise the plants and the animals properly, the way nature intended it, they will damn well be sure they let you know about it. So if you are eating anything that doesn't have that on the label, or you ask in a restaurant or takeout or packaged whatever, you're absolutely getting conventionals. Not only are you going to be contributing to the problems in the ecosystem that Autumn laid out, but you're also contributing, unfortunately, to your own health demise because all the nutrients are thrown off. You're getting more of what you don't want, the bad stuff, less of what you do want. It's just, you're getting that if you're not buying the organic. That's a big reason why. So thank you.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say too,
Please.
natural is a term that a lot of people are looking for. That means 100% nothing. It means nothing. It means it's not, there's no additives after during the processing, which doesn't really happen with meat anyway. So yeah, and to your point too, there's interesting things like free range and when it comes to chicken, right? And so that sometimes looks like still a warehouse where a lot of chickens are, that they could potentially have a door somewhere off in the distance that they might go out, but don't necessarily even know about and don't have to go out. And so what you're referring to too is, even if it's not conventional, there's a lot of greenwashing because people realize consumers are really waking up and understanding the importance of how you're sourcing your food. And so it's really hard to wade through the labels. But for me,
what is greenwashing?
Greenwashing is where they take a term like free range and make it kind of gives you that warm and fuzzy feeling, but doesn't necessarily isn't produced in the way that you actually would like it to be produced in. So like I say, free range means, they might have access to a pasture, but not that they're fully pasture raised, not that they're living on these diversified farms and actually eating insects and, expressing all their chickenness. They could still be in a warehouse with hundreds of other birds, thousands of other birds. And they're simply on, like a dirt or like a cement plot, and there's just access to a door. So there's just a really tricky wording.
Yeah, so they're intentionally giving you the idea that it's this, but it's kind of really not. Like you said, they could say, free range eggs, but that really means chickens in a barn with a door that's open to a dirt patch that they never go see and doesn't have the way to forage that they normally would eat with bugs and grass and walk around in the sun. And, so they get these little loopholes. It just makes me so upset. So I'm just going to refer everybody to your beautiful website as well, which is, paleovalley.com. It has all that information on what to look for on the label and the differences between the different terms, which is wonderful because people, we just have to be educated consumers. You always have to trust the source. It's like, who are you trusting? And sometimes, unfortunately, I think people are quite gullible and we place trust where it has not been deserved or earned. And it's like, you can't assume everyone has the same moral values as you. It's like, what you think is a lie and a truth, and having integrity and being able to look yourself in the mirror and sleep at night is different for other people, So it's sad. but true. I don't like bringing bad news on the show, but we have to be brave enough to also face reality, and that's reality. But the good news is that people like you and Fred Provenza, who I love so much, he was on my show. That was one
Oh,
of my
was
favorite.
he?
Oh my God, I'm in love with him. Episode 142, everybody. That was such a great show. Hey, were you a licked rat?
What? A licked rat? What do you
Oh,
mean?
oh, you didn't hear? Okay, so
No.
one of the big studies that they did was it was so cool. They did this study of rats, of course, and the mother rats that licked their babies had better adapted babies, like psychologically, than the rats where they were ignored by the mother. So it just goes to touch and affection with newborns, whether across species, how important it is that actually the worst thing you can give a child is not, beating them or trauma, but rather just indifference. Like they don't exist. That's the worst thing you could do you're better off. The children are actually I'm saying different studies, but this is obviously another study of how research has shown that children do the worst that are basically ignored more than the children that were actually beaten. And rats, other animals, same way. So Fred calls it the licked rat hypothesis, and him and his wife joke each other. They say, "I was not a licked rat, so you're going to have to be nicer to me. I need more TLC." So
I'm just using that. I was definitely a licked rat, and boy, do I
yay!
my rat. My little guy is just,
There you go.
yeah.
Keep licking those rats.
I
I know, isn't that funny? Yeah, I love that. He's amazing. Okay, so let's get back to, all right, so we got two big meat packaging companies. Smithfield, owned by China, owns 55,000 acres in Missouri. So like you said, these foreign countries are buying up American land. And let's talk about the number one landowner, farm owner in the country, Mr. Bill Gates. What's that all about? And Bill Gates wants to try to pass legislation that will make it illegal to farm animals. Meanwhile, he owns all the farms. Hello. Okay. And he's involved with the World Health Organization. People have to be aware of what's going on behind the scenes before it's too late. So please, you want to comment on all that?
do. It is really scary the direction that we're moving, right? With this anti-animal narrative, like we were just talking about. Yes, certain types of beef production, absolutely environmentally destructive, and we need to change that. But other types are literally the environmental solution that we've been looking for, and that's regenerative agriculture. If you watch Alan Savory's talk on TED Talk, it's amazing, and it shows how he, like most of us believe today, unfortunately, thought animals were destructive to ecosystems, and he ordered over 40,000 elephants to be killed. And what he found out was he said he called it the biggest blunder of his career. When they died.
Oh, he did it? He actually did it? Oh.
He did it, and he had other scientists who agreed because of this long-held, unsubstantiated belief that livestock are destroying ecosystems. And I'm going to qualify that in a second. But the ecosystem got worse. And what he found was animals in a highly managed way that mimicked the predatory prey cycles, right? So in nature, right, back when ecosystems evolved with these very large ruminants, they were moving because they were being chased, right? But now when we have them in these concentrated systems where they're not being chased, they're just sitting there and overgrazing and producing all this manure, they're very, very environmentally destructive. So yes, there are nuances here, but when it's a highly managed system, Alan Savory found out you can absolutely heal ecosystems, restore biodiversity, restore soil health. You can actually have the straw, or the grass acts like a straw and sucks carbon out. You have carbon sequestration, like in these well-managed grasslands, that is actually higher than forests. So cows, animals, ruminants, they are absolutely essential. And when we have these people like Bill Gates coming in and telling us that we need to stop eating meat because it's going to improve the planet and it's going to improve our health, he is not qualified to say that. He's not an agriculture specialist. He's not a nutritionist. And so it's really scary that all this land he's buying up, and I think he created a contraption for cows to reduce their methane emissions. Again, more misconceptions. Methane, right, is a greenhouse gas, but also biogenic methane that comes from animals, part of a cycle, right? It goes up, in 10 years, it's destroyed, it comes back down. That's very different than other types of methane and other types of like a stock gas, like carbon dioxide, which is going to be released and is going to stay in the environment. And so many nuances to this topic, but know that conventional agriculture, which he is an advocate of, right? Monocultures, big plots of land using chemicals, fertilizers. This is not going to restore our topsoil. It's very, very dangerous. Meat is not destroying our health. Processed foods are destroying our health. And if we continue down this trajectory where there's this anti-animal narrative and all animal production is dangerous and destructive, we are going to find ourselves in not only a weakened state of health, but with an environment that we potentially can't rehabilitate in the way that we could if we just all accepted the idea that, yeah, we can do better with agriculture. There's people already doing it. And that's the direction that we need to go. We need to empower our local communities and our local farmers and ranchers and keep ourselves close to the food source. The answer is not all of these factories producing fake meats and other industrial produced foodstuffs. That is not going to get us where we want to go. And in fact, it's going to bring us the opposite of where we want to go. It's scary.
And that's the key point, everybody. And Autumn, thank you for saying that, because what Bill Gates is not admitting is, okay, he's saying that, don't eat meat, eat my fake burger instead. Meanwhile, well, he makes $1 gazillion on his fake burger. But what about all the waste and emissions from the factory that produced that soy piece of crap? That's not even real food. You know what I'm saying? Like no one's measuring the carbon effects of that farm, which are worse. And not to mention how unnatural the whole cycle is. And let's not even get into the effect on your body of eating this stuff that's not even food. You know?
And they've actually done analyses on that.
Exactly. Yes.
You see that, right? So
yes,
every pound of, Impossible Burger, Beyond Burger produced, 4.5 pounds of carbon released to the atmosphere. But then when you look at regeneratively raised beef in White Oak pastures in Bluffton, Georgia, they found the inverse.
Yes.
It's sequestered 4.5 pounds of carbon. And Will Harris, the owner of that farm, told me that's how he knew there was a God. And so, yes, but take it into context, because conventional beef releases about 33 pounds of carbon per pound produced. So again, it is not all beef. It is conventionally raised beef. And then regeneratively raised beef is actually better for the environment than these plant-based burgers, and definitely better for your health.
And that's really, I'm so glad you just said that so beautifully, because that really is kind of one of the main objectives of this episode, is I wanted to get that message across. I was talking to just someone today that messaged me because they said they were going to try, one of your beef sticks, and they were a vegetarian for 4 years, but they're going to give it a shot. And I just immediately was like, well, good for you, but please remember, it's not about, meat versus vegetarian, which I definitely want to get into now, vegetarianism. But it's more about what we said in the beginning, how the plants and animals are raised, how the bigger picture of the ecosystem, of how it works together. I mean, this is the cycle of life. And for people who don't think plants are just as alive as animals, check out my episode with Monica Gagliano. She was also on Paul's show. I think that was episode 86. We'll put it in the show notes. But plants are very much alive. Trees have families. They communicate through the mycelium on the soil. They talk to each other. They feed each other nutrients. They warn each other of predators, as do flowers. When the bees coming around, they emit a smell that the other flowers pick up on, and it tells them, oh, there's a bee nearby, close. And, it's like plants are just as alive, everybody. It's about raising these animals the way nature intended and not treating them inhumanely, and thinking of the bigger picture, not just the 10 years that you're on a farm and making money, So thank you for saying that. Let's get into vegetarianism, because in your docuseries, that's kind of was a big part of it. Like we wanted, well, tell us, what was the point of you making the docuseries? And let's talk about some of the main findings.
Yeah, so the Docuseries came about because of our meat delivery service, and not a lot of people were unsubscribing, but when people did, we always wanted to know why. One of the main reasons was because they were going vegan for the planet and their health. And so obviously we broke that down. We actually discovered and looked into the origins of this anti-meat message, which are absolutely fascinating. A lot of it is based in religion. And a woman named Ellen G. White, she was a prophetess of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, and her colleague, or someone who studied under her, Dr. John Harvey Kellogg, believed that meat led to masturbation and these lustful and sinful desires. And so he created the first plant-based protein, actually, and also just cereal, flaked corn and wheat cornflakes, Kellogg's cornflakes, in an effort to deter, children from masturbating. So that's fascinating. And then you find, all of these entrepreneurial, William Proctor, James Gamble, all of these different elements, Ansel Keys in his research that was really short-sighted. So that was episode 1. And then we dig into heart disease, cholesterol, cancer. Does meat cause disease? And then we also talk about vegetarian and veganism, because I am all for people choosing what they want to eat. And I think that has to remain a very personal decision, right? I have a lot of things in common with vegans, right? We care about animal welfare. We care about the planet. We care about our health. The part that gets me is just how unfairly demonized meat has become, right? In terms of it's critical for our health. It is responsible for the development of our brain. It helps us preserve lean muscle mass and metabolic health. And the problem is processed foods, but somehow it's got blamed. Meat has become the scapegoat for what processed foods have undoubtedly done, because cultures for millions of years have been consuming meat without the disease that we're suffering from today. So where I get really worried is this generation. My friend's daughter came home from school. She's 9, and she said, there's a club at school. I can't be a part of it because I eat meat.
Whoa.
Now, I interviewed dozens of vegans, ex-vegans, right? And like I said, I fully respect your own decision. But all these themes, these health issues, autoimmune illness, bone issue, joint issues, mental health stuff. These are very real effects of sometimes when people remove meat from their diet. I think some people are genetically better able to do it than others. But for a lot of people, they do start to suffer. My main concern is for children, because there are so many case studies, so many examples of children being harmed in a way that they can't necessarily come back from, even after they add meat back into their diet, even if they're supplementing, even, their developmental windows in childhood, that if you don't receive the nutrients that you need, there's no coming back from that. And these babies will suffer. So that is why I made that episode, with the intention of just kind of educating about the risks for certain people, and about the fact that plants and animals foods are not necessarily interchangeable. They provide very different, unique nutrient profiles that I think we benefit from when we consume them together the most. So yes, like I said, that episode is just not intended to belittle people who are choosing to be vegan, because like I said, I have a lot of respect for a lot of their values, merely to inform that there are risks associated with that diet. And especially when it comes to children, I think we need to be very, very careful about imposing a diet on them that it runs counter to our evolutionary history, even though it is celebrated in the mainstream. And so many people are afraid to kind of call that out. But there's a lot of countries that recommend against vegan diets for children in particular, but we're not living in one of them. But that doesn't mean there aren't real effects.
Yes, you and I, no one's going to be more caring about the welfare of the planet and animals than you and I. So we're right with you with vegetarians. Absolutely, 100%. We care about animals and creatures and every living being. But you have to be informed. And you have to be informed, like I said, from sources that you can trust, that tell the truth. And then you can make a decision. You can't have consent if you don't have informed consent. So if you're going to be a vegetarian, do it intelligently, from reputable sources, not from people who have ulterior motives like Mr. Bill Gates. This sounds like a Bill Gates rant, but sorry, but I've been he just keeps coming up in all my research for everything. I'm like, this guy is like bad news. But meat, highly bioavailable as opposed to plants. High in vitamin B12, vitamin D, iron, zinc, calcium, omega-3s. So creatine, all the amino acids, a good form of iron. So, do you want to emphasize anything on what do vegetarians need to know, just to be healthy?
Yeah. So vegetarians and vegans, I would definitely know that there's a lot of us who can't convert those nutrients, some of the nutrients in plants that are like the nutrients found in animals. So one example is beta carotene, right? It's a plant precursor of retinol, the active form of vitamin A, but it requires like 12 times the amount of retinol to get an active one. And some of us cannot make that conversion at all, right? I've talked to people, they just don't make that conversion. So no matter how much beta carotene you're getting from carrots or sweet potatoes, you're still not going to get that active form of vitamin A that's critical for, our eye health and our immune system and our reproduction. There's also vitamin B12, right? That you just don't get when you don't eat animal products, right? Especially organ meats are an exceptional source of B12. And you will find B12 analogs in plant-based foods, but a lot of times they block the absorption and utilization of the actual B12. And so they increase our needs for that. Then we have something like zinc. So a lot of these plant foods have anti-nutrients, right, that inhibit the absorption, phytates, sometimes even fiber. And so zinc, you have to eat, sometimes vegetarians, require 50% more. They even did a fascinating trial where they took a low meat diet and supplemented with zinc and compared to the people who ate just meat. And they found that even the levels in the blood of zinc were not the same with that supplementation. It goes back to that holism that we were talking about before. So yeah, meat is our most bioavailable source of nutrients like B12, of iron, which is the #1 worldwide deficiency, of zinc, right? Of the preformed version of vitamin A, of creatine, of carnosine, of taurine, of so many of these nutrients that we are only beginning to understand completely, right? So when you're taking out that entire food group, you are missing out. And B12 is so critical for the nervous system. This is where you see a lot of the detrimental effects in vegetarian and vegan diets is B12 deficiency, sometimes irreversible effects when you don't have enough. I've seen people who have been manic, who have gotten psychosis and delirium and hallucinations, and they didn't come back until they were given B12, right? So this can be a very, very serious thing. And so, yeah, I would just say you need to know how you convert these nutrients. You need to test them in your blood, not just do the calculations on a back of a piece of paper, because we don't know how that's actually performing inside your body. And just know that you're going to need to supplement. If you're cutting meat out of your diet, you absolutely have to. But sometimes supplements don't do the job anyway. There was even a trial in vegan kids, and I think it was Finland, that showed dietitians planned their diets and they also got supplements, but they were still suffering from deficiencies as a result in amino acids and other specific nutrients. And so, yeah, you're going to be fighting an uphill battle. I've seen people do it well, but those people are typically the exception. And you have to be very, very, very mindful. And the more important thing is you can care about animals and still consume meat. You can still be part of restoring the planet and eating meat. And I think Paul talks a lot about this. If you are destroying yourself and your health in the process of trying to improve the planet, you're taking the very thing that can really do the most good out of the equation. The one person who could vote for change in the way that we're raising our animals and the way that we're improving our environment, that person is you. And so sometimes understanding that we are a part of nature and that eventually everybody is somebody's lunch, it is kind of just, it's hard sometimes to grapple with, but I think it's just, we can't let our idealistic versions of the world negate reality.
It's the natural cycle of life. Like our buddy Fred says, nature is one big restaurant.
Yes.
I think it was actually Paul too who said life eats life. But, it's like, it's just the way it is. And, to your point, for us to be as healthy as we can possibly be will increase the chances we can provide solutions and have the energy and the brain power to give viable solutions and have the energy to contribute to them. So that's beautiful. We can't close this section on meat in your docuseries and vegetarianism without you touching on, I can hear the people saying, what about cholesterol and saturated fat in meat? What do you have to say about that? How did that whole hypothesis start and what is the truth?
Oh gosh, I can't wait to share this whole episode. And so we made this episode, it's done. And we had to cut, it was 20 minutes. It could have been 40, so fascinating. So dietary cholesterol has been vindicated, right? Even Ansel Keys, who is kind of the father of this hypothesis that animal product consumption led to an increased risk of heart disease, he admitted way back in the day that dietary cholesterol for most people, unless you're what's called a hyper-responder, it's not a matter of concern. So saturated fat is a little bit more nuanced, right? So Nina Teicholz in her book, The Big Fat Surprise, and Gary Taubes They break this down beautifully because there's a lot of study or history here. But Ansel Keys came up with this hypothesis, right? Saturated fat, the consumption of it, increase your risk of heart disease. But what was actually found, because he chose, I believe it was 6 countries for this study initially, and it wasn't like a fair accounting. And when you added the data for the 22 countries where the data was actually available, we found a very different picture, and that the relationship wasn't as clear. And then in some analyses later done by other statisticians, it looked like animal products might actually be protective when you're looking at overall mortality rather than just risk of heart disease, right? And so there's also been several other trials in the 60s and 70s primarily that showed when you replace saturated fats with polyunsaturated fats, you don't necessarily reduce the risk of overall mortality. Now, that's the important point. A lot of times when you're looking at these studies demonizing animal products, they're looking at cholesterol levels, right? Or, does it raise or lower cholesterol? But what we can't say is that it decreases your risk of death. And that's the endpoint that really, really matters. Now, there's also been the Nutrition Coalition, which Nina Teicholz founded, has shown over 20 different reviews showing the same thing. Saturated fat does not increase your risk of death according to the best available scientific evidence. Now, that is a huge tanker, right? Like, we have been on this path where we're demonizing saturated fat for a really long time. And so Nina is working actively to get our dietary guidelines committees to acknowledge the limitations in this body of research. They haven't done it yet, but I think eventually they will. And so we know saturated fat is not, and plus saturated fat is a diverse array. Like, there are many different types of saturated fats within that saturated fat category, right? And many different sources of saturated fat. And so to have this blanket statement that saturated fat and animal foods are dangerous is very, very incomplete. And I would say absolutely inaccurate.
That's so important. And for most the people in our circles, it's been long debunked anyway. It just seems to be hanging in there in the mainstream though. Like, people just can't, it's like they were born with it. It's like a it's like a freckle that just you were born with, and it's still there. It just won't go away, like no matter what. And the preferred fuel of the heart is saturated fat. And that's part of when they would do autopsies of people who died of heart disease and they saw a lot of fat around the heart, they were like, oh, high fat diet, heart attack. And it's like, well, the heart functions best on saturated fat. I mean, if you really go into the biochemistry of it, saturated fat is more important than the other kinds of fats for a lot of reasons. It's also your insulation. And, to your point, we need it. It's very important.
It's very important, and it's more stable, right? So in a restaurant, we cook our French fries in tallow because it is a highly saturated fat. And when you have a polyunsaturated fat, like these vegetable oils that are often being touted as the more potentially beneficial, they have a lot of different bonds that can break and produce oxidation and these other compounds in your body that produce and promote inflammation. So yes, saturated fat is arguably the healthier fat.
Oxidation, which is synonymous with free radicals and aging. As we come to the end here, I want to, shift into your amazing company and how it's different and what we love about it. But I want to share with people quickly some data, 2022 data analysis of USDA. Red meat consumption declined in 2022 by 44%. Animal fats like lard consumption declined by 78%. This is just a year ago, okay? Butter declined 68%. Margarine consumption increased, ready for it? 192%. Shortening increased, so this is trans fat, right? Shortening increased by 91%. And then the big kahuna, ready? Cooking oils. So everybody, help me with this, Autumn. Cooking oils, canola, soy, what else?
Corn oil, safflower oil, sunflower oil, rapeseed oil, grapeseed oil. Those are the main ones. Sunflower, canola. Soy is the one. Soy is almost everywhere.
So this is going to be what all the restaurants use. So if you eat takeout, you go to restaurants, I hate to be the bearer of good news, but again, you can't make an informed decision if you're wondering what's wrong with you. and why people like Autumn and I have high energy and all that. It's because we really don't have this stuff in our diet. Because it makes a difference. Okay. So if you're having trouble and you're struggling, you can't help yourself if you're not aware of what you're doing unknowingly. Okay. So if you're going to restaurants, okay, every now and then, fine. Of course, I do it too. I mean, I'm going to have a social life, but you have to know that they're using these products. Okay. This is the type of oils they're using. It's in pretty much all processed food, anything boxed, packaged, canned. If you don't make it yourself, you're probably ingesting it. But to finish my point, the USDA data analysis showed cooking oils increased in 2022 by 329%. 300. So people like Dr. McCullough are saying that cooking oils are basically worse than sugar. You're better off to have sugar. That's how bad they are, because they disrupt the structure of your cells, which is is basically synonymous with premature aging. The nutrients can't get across the cell barrier properly. The nerve signals can't happen properly. It's just screwing up the very structure of your body. We're not designed to eat that much oils from plants. We are designed to eat them from animals, however, animals that are properly raised.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I saw on this website the other day, Tucker Goodrich is a good person to talk to you about seed oils. He said, if you take 5 to 10 tablespoons of vegetable oil, which is kind of the average most of us are consuming, it's like eating like 98 ears of corn and something like 60 cups of rice and like 400 grapes. Like, we would not be able to eat that amount without these mechanized processes that we're having today. And yeah, I think they've increased where we need like 1% linoleic acid in our diet. I think we're up of like 6 to 10%. So we are way past what we naturally require, and the nutrients in these oils. And like you said, a lot of people think this is the most dangerous dietary element that we're up against.
Yes. Dr. Kate, is it
Shanahan?
Is it Janet? I'm thinking, is it Blanchard though, with the Hateful Eight?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, she has a whole book that talks a lot about it. But if you look up the Hateful Eight, I have a blog post on it that I refer to her. But yeah, I mean, this is like the new area of nutritional research is now like, we're off the sugar train and now we're talking about, oh my God, these oils. Because, I remember even 10 years ago, canola was the thing. It's like, oh, my salmon has canola oil on it. And it's like, oh my God, now we know. It's like, this is a million times worse. You're better off to have coconut or olive or whatever. Okay, so as we get to the end here, Autumn, let's talk about your amazing company. Let's talk about how does Paleovalley and Wild Pastures, your companies, how do they basically transform the meat industry? How are they part of the solution for everything we're talking about today?
Yeah, so our beef sticks are all sourced from American regenerative farms. Same thing, our meat delivery service. Now, this is where we really get passionate about. We make it affordable. So it's 40% less than other meat delivery services. The best part is it's all from America. A lot of 70 to 80% of the grass-fed beef in America today is imported from other countries. And so I think what we're doing when we support that is we're undermining our ability to create a sustainable food source and rehabilitate our soil here in America. And so it's part of the solution because we work with these small scale family farmers and we create that demand. We connect them to the conscious consumers like your listeners whose values align with what they're doing on their farms and ranches. So at every stage of the process in all of our products, we're considering agriculture. We're understanding that link between human and environmental health. And so we're just creating products that help people support that.
Excellent. Okay. You're the woman. I'm going to put you right on the spot. What are some of your favorite Paleovalley products? I know mine.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So right now I'm obsessed with our chocolate bone broth. Is actually, I put it with macadamia nut milk and then cloves, turmeric, cinnamon, ginger, and the bone. It is just the most delightful thing in the world. And then I can only eat 2 of our beef sticks actually because garlic bothers me. And so I love our summer sausage and I love our turkey sticks. And then our chocolate bars. I am absolutely obsessed with our chocolate bars and our essential vitamin C. I think far too few people know how important vitamin C is to their health and how much having a little bit more is actually very, very beneficial, especially when it's from a whole food source. And so those are mine. What are yours?
Tell us before I get to my, if you don't mind, vitamin C. Now that you just teased us with that, we need to know from the expert. Tell us what we need to know about vitamin C, because it's actually one of my favorites. I have it every day.
Yeah, me too. So 90% of what you're going to find on the market is made from genetically modified corn, and it's ascorbic acid. So ascorbic acid is the antioxidant outer shell of the whole food vitamin C complex. Oh. And Paul Chek said this, it really resonated with me. He said, what part of a watch tells time?
Yes.
Yeah, and it's like not one part of the watch, right? It all works together. So all of those compounds, the tyrosinase, the factors P and J, and ascorbinogen, and all of these other things that you find in vitamin C are all working together. There's a trial in smokers that looked at what if you took camu juice and what if you took 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C in ascorbic acid form. Only the whole food source was able to reduce inflammation and oxidative stress. So they're different. So we got amla berry, unripe acerola cherry, and camu berry because they're three of the world's most potent organic natural sources of vitamin C that you don't just find anywhere. And then we put them in capsules. And also there's 450 milligrams per serving because I do really think in our state of health, where most of us aren't necessarily healthy, where we have environmental pollution, we're overstressed, a lot of us are exercising, we need more vitamin C. Vitamin C is very supportive. And so we wanted to provide a dosage that would also support health in modern day society. So
bang on. There you go. From your lips to God's ears. I love it. So vitamin C, the Paleovalley, is definitely something I have every day. Another one of my favorites is your apple cider vinegar complex, because it's a complex and it's real food. Okay, which I love so much. I don't know if you want to say anything about that or.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So yeah. I love apple cider vinegar because it's been, revered for centuries, but not that many people use it today. And it has ability to kind of improve fat burning and to reduce blood sugar. I remember, I've worked with so many people who wear CGMs, and they notice when they take apple cider vinegar, their blood sugar is in a far more beneficial range. I also just interviewed this wonderful woman who studied antidepressive effects of apple cider vinegar.
Really?
Yeah. And she couldn't yet pinpoint the mechanism, but it was in a group of college students. It was really clear that it did exert some sort of antidepressive effect. And then we combined it with cinnamon and ginger and turmeric because these are all very digestive and just metabolically supportive spices that not a lot of people are consuming. So this is kind of like improving your digestion, keeping your blood sugar stable, actually helping you to eat less. Apple cider vinegar does that also effortlessly. It's 200 to 300 calories less in a day simply from using apple cider vinegar. And so, yes, just a complex of different spices and foods that will work with your body synergistically, holistically, to just improve health in so many ways.
And apple cider vinegar has always been a medicinal food, to your point. I mean, and let's not forget your immune system, so it's one of the queen medicinal foods of, but like chicken soup, it's like apple cider vinegar, chicken soup. These are all things, that are, back in the ancients. And I can't not mention your turkey sticks. Oh my gosh. And I love the beef sticks too, because probably my favorite thing in the whole world besides chocolate is hamburger. So I love your beef sticks too, but your turkey sticks. And I talk about this all the time because, everybody, you just have to try them because it's just so beautiful. Thank you, Autumn, for making food that tastes really good. Like if this wasn't good for me, I'd want to eat it anyway because it tastes good. You know what I mean? Like, thank God, because I grew up. I didn't want to say I'm not a spring chicken, but I'm on the other side of it at this point. And our family, my parents, they were kind of the health nuts back growing. They had the carrot juice and all that, and we were the weirdos. We had the Cheerios. Everybody else had the Lucky Charms. No one wanted to come to our house, because
that's our house.
Yeah. Oh, right. Okay. Because so healthy food was like eating a cardboard box. It was gross. I mean, remember Power Bars? Like back in they were like leather shoestring. But so now that just reminded me, I just ordered a box of your lemon bars. I love lemon. I can't wait to get them in.
Oh, I
So,
love it.
so thank you. Thank you for making foods that taste good, are super healthy, are consciously produced, and so convenient. I mean, everybody right there. What else do you need to know other than, oh, you got a coupon code. You can use my coupon code to save some money, Amy Fournier 10 at checkout. If you forget, it's in the show notes. It's on my website, recommended products. I really hope you try Paleovalley. You won't regret it. Your kids will love them. What are some of your kids' favorite products?
Oh, my little guy really loves our electrolytes lately, our watermelon electrolytes. And
Nice.
also we used to call our super greens drink his ninja juice. Loves that. He definitely loves the jalapeno beef sticks. His favorite used to be teriyaki, and for a lot of kids,
Yes,
it
those are
is the
good.
teriyaki because it's slightly sweet, but he's
Yeah.
really that. And then the red velvet bars. The red
Ooh,
velvet bars. It's the
darn.
texture it's just perfection. You'll love it.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Autumn, thank you so much. Okay. Anything else you feel like you want to get across? We covered a lot of ground today. I just wanted to make the most of having someone like you, an expert on so many things on the show. But is there anything else you want to share with the audience before we say goodbye to make yourself feel complete?
Oh gosh, thank you for having me. This has been one of my favorite conversations. And also
Really?
I know it can be very overwhelming as a consumer, but just know, changing one thing at a time, being mindful of one thing that you weren't mindful of yesterday, practicing that for a week, changing that. Again, just like we were talking about holistic health, that sends ripple effects. That sends demand, that sends support to the people who are really caring about what they're producing. So just, don't be overwhelmed. Just take one step at a time and know that one step is helping immensely.
Perfect advice, because people tend to get overwhelmed. Yep, for sure. One thing at a time, and the next thing you know, they'll add up and you'll be making progress. Okay, how can people find more about Paleovalley and the Docuseries, please?
Yeah. Okay. So you can always reach out to me, Autumn at Paleovalley. And then, for any product, you should use your code. Okay. But if you want to learn about the Docuseries, you can also join our email list. You will be notified there, and it should be done, I'm hoping, in this summer. So there's going to be 7 episodes. It's action packed. It's going to be really fun. There's over, probably like 50 expert interviews. So lots of cool voices, and you can find them on our website and on our
And
list.
is it going to be like streaming? Like where do people
You know
watch?
what? We haven't even figured out what exactly we're doing with it yet, because it was just this
Okay.
small project. My husband was like,
Yeah.
take a month, do these videos. And then I just got wrapped up in all of the incredible knowledge and I don't know, of all of these experts I interviewed, that I wanted to give it the time it deserved. So we haven't even really thought it out, but I know that we will offer it to our subscribers for sure, and probably put it on YouTube. But yeah, the details haven't really been worked out. We'll see.
Well, I will be sharing it. And if you want to come back on the show, if I can help any way,
Yeah.
please just reach out. I'd love to have you back. Thank you so much. So everybody, that'll be in the show notes, Autumn's website, her contact information, the docuseries name, if you forget. And if you want to check out her products, like we said, use my coupon code. You can save 10%, Amy Fournier 10 at checkout. And wow, we both can't wait to hear what you think and to hear your favorites. Autumn Smith, thank you so much for being on Awakening Aphrodite today.
Yeah, it was my absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Okay, thanks everybody. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Would you like to support my mission to help empower people all over the world to be all of who they truly are? If so, please subscribe to the show, leave a review on iTunes, and share it with a friend. And if you're looking to take immediate action to align your energy and optimize your health, visit amyfournier.com. Thanks for listening to Awakening Aphrodite. Let's awaken her together in you. I'm your hostess, Amy Fournier, and I already can't wait to be with you again and for you to hear what I have planned for the next show.
Thanks for listening to Awakening Aphrodite with Amy Fournier. To learn more about Amy, check out her website, amyfournier.com. That's AMYFOURNIER.com. You can also check out Amy's live and on-demand virtual fitness and yoga classes, and sign up for her newsletter to receive a free mini ebook of 3 of her top tips for making holistic health a lifestyle. Again, that's amyfournier.com, and get your ebook sent to your email immediately. Connect with Amy on the daily on Instagram at FitAmyTV, AMYTV, and watch many of the podcast episodes and subtopic clips on her YouTube channel, which is also Fit Amy TV. Enjoy, and we'll see you next time on Awakening Aphrodite.